Step back in time to November 28, 1912, a day of immense significance for Albania, as it declared independence, breaking free from nearly 5 centuries of Ottoman rule. This historic moment unfolded in the city of Vlora, led by national leader Ismail Kemali, who raised the Albanian flag and declared the country's sovereignty. As the 20th century dawned, the weakening Ottoman Empire witnessed several Balkan nations gaining independence. For Albanians, this was the perfect moment to establish their own state, preserving their unique language, culture, and identity. Yet, independence was not without its challenges. Unclear borders, foreign intervention, and political instability presented significant hurdles. Gradual international recognition, however, came, notably after the London Conference of 1913, which acknowledged Albania as an independent state. Each year, on November 28, Albania celebrates its Independence Day, a symbol of national pride, unity, and a testament to the Albanian people's prolonged struggle for freedom and self-determination. Immerse yourself in the tale of Andorra, a small landlocked gem nestled in the Pyrenees Mountains, between France and Spain. Unlike typical states, Andorra's independence didn't arise from war or revolution, but rather evolved gradually over centuries. Flashback to 1278, the year of feudal agreement, the Pareage, was inked between the Count of Foix, now France, and the Bishop of Urgell, Spain. This pact birthed Andorra as a co-principality, co-ruled by 2 leaders, shielding it from being swallowed by either neighboring power. Fast forward, the Count of Foix's rights transitioned to the French crown, and then to the French president, who still shares Andorra's rule with the Bishop of Urgell today. This setup upheld Andorra's sovereignty, enabling it to remain neutral and mostly self-governed. The year 1993 marked a significant stride towards Andorra's modern independence. This was when the country embraced its first written constitution, transforming it into a parliamentary democracy, asserting the separation of powers and solidifying its status as a sovereign state. That same year, Andorra was welcomed into the United Nations, earning full international recognition. Now, Andorra stands as an independent state, with its own government, laws, and institutions, while maintaining its unique co-principality system, one of the world's oldest and most intriguing forms of governance. Exposing the myth in Austria's independence. Spoiler alert, it wasn't just a one-day event. Let's time travel through Austria's complicated road to freedom. Buckle up. Austria's journey to independence kicked off in 1918, when the Austro-Hungarian Empire collapsed after World War I. The new Republic of German Austria wanted to join Germany, but the Treaty of Saint-Germain in 1919 said nope, making Austria an independent republic. Fast forward to 1938. Austria lost its freedom when Nazi Germany moved in during the Anschluss. For 7 years Austria vanished from the map. After World War II, Austria wasn't free yet, it was occupied by the Allies. But on May 15, 1955, the Austrian State Treaty finally restored full independence. There's a twist. Austria had to promise to stay neutral, swearing off military alliances in October 1955. That's still a core part of Austria's identity today. So, Austria's freedom? Not a one-hit wonder. It's a saga of resilience, treaties, and a unique brand of neutrality that sets the country apart. Everyone knows about big empires, but what about the nations that refuse to be erased? Let's uncover Armenia's untold journey to independence. Armenia's struggle started centuries ago. They built an ancient kingdom, became the first Christian nation, and survived wave after wave of invasion. Empires came and went, the Persians, Ottomans, Russians, but Armenians held on to their language, church, and culture. In 1918, for a brief moment, Armenia broke free. Independence lasted just 2 years before Soviet rule returned. Still, that taste of freedom fueled hope. Fast forward to 1991. The Soviet Union collapsed. Armenians voted, overwhelmingly, for independence. It wasn't easy. There was war, disaster, and poverty. But Armenians didn't back down. Today, independence means more than flags and borders. It's proof of survival, pride, and resilience. Armenia's spirit, unbreakable.
What's something most people don't know about Azerbaijan? Its journey to independence is packed with bold moves and historic firsts. Here's how a nation reclaimed its place on the map. Twice. Let's rewind to 1918. Azerbaijan became the first secular democratic republic in the Muslim world. Universal suffrage, women voting, way ahead of its time. But after just 23 months, Soviet forces took over in 1920. For more than 70 years, Azerbaijan's voice was lost under Soviet rule. Fast forward to 1991, the Soviet Union collapses. On October 18th, Azerbaijan declares independence. A nationwide vote in December seals the deal. The early years were tough: political chaos, economic struggle, and conflict over Nagorno-Karabakh, but Azerbaijan pushed through. Oil and gas projects powered a new era, and the nation rebuilt with purpose. Today, Azerbaijan stands proud, sovereign, united, and forging its own path in a challenging world. Independence wasn't just won, it was earned, and the journey continues.
I'm sure you've heard the news, Georgia's independence, right? But did you know their struggle has been going on for centuries? Let's rewind the epic. In the heart of the Caucasus, Georgia's spirit burned bright, centuries before the world took notice. Medieval kings, like David the Ban Stepamsir and Queen Tamar, built a golden age of culture and power. But empires rise and fall. In 1918, after Russia collapsed, Georgia claimed independence, only to be swallowed by the Soviet Union 3 years later. But Georgian dreams don't die that easy. April 9th, 1989. Soviet troops crush peaceful protesters in Tbilisi, sparking outrage, grief, and an unstoppable movement for freedom. 2 years later, on that exact date, Georgia declares its independence. The price? Economic chaos, civil war, separatist conflicts, but Georgians kept pushing, demanding democracy, staging the Rose Revolution, and looking west for a brighter future. Georgia's fight for independence? It's not over. It's a living, breathing quest for freedom, for identity, for tomorrow. History buffs, take note. Georgia never gives up. What I wish I knew at age 13 instead of just learning it in textbooks. Moldova's fight for freedom is way more exciting than you think. Here's the wild story. Fast. Flashback to the late 1980s. Soviet power is fading, and Moldovans are ready for change. On June 23, 1990, Moldova boldly declares its own laws matter more than Moscow's. That's the Declaration of Sovereignty, a fancy way of saying, we make the rules now. Fast forward to August 27, 1991. Moldova drops the mic and announces full independence. The Soviet Union? Collapsing. Moldova? Celebrating. The world quickly takes notice, and by 1992, Moldova joins the United Nations and starts building its own government and economy. Sure, the road wasn't smooth, economic struggles and a tense Transnistrian conflict kept things bumpy. But Moldova's independence? It means the people finally get to choose their future. Moldova's story proves even small countries can make big moves. And the best chapters are still being written. What's something people don't know about Belgium? It wasn't always an EU powerhouse. Once upon a time, it literally rebelled its way onto the map. The year? 1830. Belgium is stuck under Dutch rule, and let's just say, not everyone's happy. Political drama, religious beef, and a bad economy spark a full-on revolution in August. By October 4th, Belgium's like, we're out. A provisional government pops up in Brussels, and, plot twist, they actually pull it off. Fast forward to 1831. Belgium drops one of Europe's most progressive constitutions. Enter Leopold I, their first king, who's more cool uncle than royal dictator. But Europe's not convinced until the big players sign the Treaty of London in 1839, making Belgium officially neutral. Spoiler. That neutrality gets put to the test, hard, during World War I and II. Today, Belgium's not just famous for waffles and chocolate, it's a founding member of the EU and home to major European institutions. Not bad for a tiny country with a big rebellious streak. What does it take for a nation to stand up and claim its freedom? Bosnia knows the answer. As communism crumbled across Eastern Europe, Yugoslavia started to unravel. Bosnia and Herzegovina faced a crucial choice: stay or become independent. On February 29th and March 1st, 1992, the people voted. The result? Overwhelming support for independence. Just days later, Bosnia declared itself a new nation. But freedom came at a heavy price. War erupted. Ethnic tensions exploded into violence and heartbreak. Cities were shattered. Lives forever changed. Yet, through the chaos, hope refused to die. By 1995, the Dayton Agreement brought peace and a fresh start. Bosnia and Herzegovina, scarred but unbroken, stayed united. Today it stands tall, working toward a brighter future in the heart of Europe. A story of resilience. A nation that refused to give up. That's Bosnia's untold journey to freedom. This is why you need to hear Bulgaria's story. It's about grit, hope, and knowing when to say enough. Get ready for an epic moment in history. Bulgaria spent almost 5 centuries under Ottoman rule. That's longer than the United States has even existed. But in 1908, something huge happened. In the ancient city of Tarnovo, Prince Ferdinand stood tall and declared, "Bulgaria is free. No more emperors. No more outside control." This wasn't just a political move. It was a we decide our own fate moment. The world took notice. European powers and even the Ottoman Empire said, "Okay, you're independent." Bulgaria's independence fired up the entire Balkan region, setting off a wave of change. And today, Bulgarians celebrate September 22nd as Independence Day, proud of their fierce spirit and unity. So next time you think one person or one small nation can't make a difference, remember Bulgaria's bold stand. Hit follow to learn more epic stories from history. Let's celebrate courage and freedom together. You need to watch this if you struggle with believing one country can change its fate. Croatia did just that, against all odds. Here's how they made history. In 1991, Croatia made a bold choice, declaring independence from Yugoslavia after a nationwide vote. But freedom didn't come easy. The world was uncertain. The Yugoslav army and Serb forces pushed back, sparking a brutal war that tore families apart and shattered cities. Still, Croatians refused to give up. They fought through fear, loss, and destruction, driven by the dream of self-determination. Slowly, the world took notice. In 1992, Croatia earned recognition from Europe, and then, the United Nations. Victory came in 1995. But the real triumph? Building a democracy, healing wounds, and joining NATO and the EU. Today, Croatia stands proud, a symbol of resilience and hope. Never forget. Freedom is won, not given. Croatia proved it. One brave step at a time. Anis Ambri, Bumain. What I wish I knew about peaceful separations instead of messy splits. In 1989, the Velvet Revolution shook the walls of communism in Czechoslovakia. As democracy dawned, differences between the Czech lands and Slovakia grew. A peaceful split was the solution. Fast forward to January 1, 1993. Czechoslovakia officially dissolved into two nations, the Czech Republic and Slovakia. Václav Havel, a revolutionary hero, became the first president of the Czech Republic. This velvet divorce was remarkable for its lack of violence. Since then, the Czech Republic has soared. It joined NATO in 1999 and the European Union in 2004. With a stable economy and rich culture, it plays a central role in Europe today. Who knew independent nations could be born without a fight? What's your take on this history lesson? Share your thoughts below. Why are there not more people talking about Denmark's epic journey through history? From Vikings to modern democracy, it's a fascinating tale. Denmark's story begins in the Viking Age. By the 10th century, King Harald Bluetooth had unified the tribes and introduced Christianity, shaping Denmark into a recognized kingdom. While many nations fought for independence, Denmark kept its sovereignty through savvy politics and steady governance. Fast forward to 1849, Denmark adopted a groundbreaking constitution. It transitioned from an absolute to a constitutional monarchy, embracing democracy and enhancing its independence. Though it faced challenges, like losing territory in the Second Schleswig War, Denmark focused inward, on democracy, social reforms, and innovation. Today, Denmark stands as a testament to resilience. A member of the European Union, it's renowned for its democratic institutions and high quality of life. Denmark's thousand-year journey is a lesson in endurance and evolution. Who knew history could be so cool, right? You need to hear this if you love underdog victories. Estonia's fight for independence is one for the history books. Let's dive in. In 1918, while the world was in chaos, a small nation stood tall. Estonia declared independence, brave, bold, and ready to chart its own path. But freedom wasn't handed over. Estonians fought the Estonian War of Independence, facing down Bolshevik and German forces. Against the odds, they won. The Treaty of Tartu sealed the deal. Estonia was finally recognized as a free nation. But history threw another curveball. In 1940, Estonia was swallowed by the Soviet Union. Decades of occupation followed, but the spirit of freedom never faded. Fast forward to the late 80s. Estonians raised their voices in the singing revolution, demanding their rights through music, unity, and courage. August 20th, 1991, Estonia's independence is restored. Today this tiny nation is a digital powerhouse, proud member of NATO and the EU, and a symbol of resilience. Every February 24th, Estonia celebrates the strength it took to stand free. That's history worth remembering. I think I messed up. I used to think Bastille Day was just about fireworks and parades, but it's actually the birthday of modern France. Before 1789, France was ruled by kings who held all the power, while most people had almost no rights. Society was split into rigid classes, nobles at the top, everyone else struggling below. But then came a perfect storm, economic crisis, hunger, and years of frustration boiled over. On July 14, 1789, the people of Paris stormed the Bastille, a prison that symbolized royal tyranny. This wasn't just a jailbreak, it was a shout for freedom. That day sparked a revolution that would topple the monarchy. By 1792, France declared itself a republic, tossing out kings and embracing the ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity. These words still define France today, and here's the twist. France's fight for independence inspired revolutions all over the world. The French Revolution didn't just change France, it changed history. Vive la Révolution! I'm sure you've heard the news. Germany wasn't always one big place. For centuries it was more like a jigsaw puzzle with pieces all over the map, but here's how it finally snapped together. Picture Germany in the old days, hundreds of mini-states, like a classroom with everyone doing their own homework. Fast forward to the 1800s, people start thinking, hey, wouldn't it be cooler if we worked together? That's where Otto von Bismarck comes in, part diplomat, part chess master. He masterminds alliances, stirs up a few wars, and bam, after the Franco-Prussian War, the German Empire is born in 1871, right in the fancy palace of Versailles. Imagine the drama, but history loves a twist. 2 world wars later, Germany splits in two, East and West. It wasn't until 1990, after the Berlin Wall fell, that Germany became whole again. Now, every October 3rd, Germans celebrate Unity Day, because independence here isn't just about breaking free, it's about coming together. Now that's epic. If you love epic rebellions, buckle up. The Greek War of Independence wasn't just a battle, it was a comeback story for the ages, ready to find out how a nation rose from the ashes. In 1821, after centuries under Ottoman rule, Greeks said, enough. Fueled by secret societies like the Filiki Iteria, uprisings exploded across the land. But this fight wasn't just swords and muskets. Ideas mattered. Enlightenment thinking and fierce pride powered the rebels. It wasn't easy. The Ottomans fought back hard, and even Greek forces clashed among themselves. So, how did Greece survive? Europe noticed. Ordinary people and leaders in Britain, France, and Russia cheered, and then sent their fleets to help. The tide turned at the epic Battle of Navarino in 1827. The Ottoman navy was crushed. 3 years later, Greece was recognized as independent. Today, March 25th is Greek Independence Day, a symbol of freedom, pride, and the power of never giving up. History buffs. How's that for a revolution? Ever heard how Hungary flipped the script on history? Stick around, this one's wild. For hundreds of years, Hungary played second fiddle under the mighty Habsburg monarchy, but in November 1918, with World War I in ruins, Hungary finally hit reset, declaring itself an independent republic. No more emperors, no more strings attached. Sounds like a happy ending, right? Not so fast. The Treaty of Trianon in 1920 slashed Hungary's borders. Imagine losing 2/3 of your backyard overnight. Still, Hungarians held tight to their pride and rebuilt, brick by brick. Then came Soviet control after World War II. Independence? Put on ice. But in 1989, with a peaceful revolution, Hungary broke those chains for good, stepping into democracy and the global stage. Today, Hungary stands tall, independent, proud, and very much its own. Proof that even the toughest history can lead to a brand new chapter. If you think all independence stories are about war, think again. Iceland did it their own way. Here's how a small nation made history, peacefully. For centuries, Iceland was ruled by distant kings, first Norway, then Denmark. But the Icelanders, they held tight to their language, their stories, and their laws. They never let go of who they were. In 1918, things changed. The Act of Union with Denmark made Iceland a sovereign state. They ran their own country, while Denmark handled the big international stuff. But full freedom? Not yet. World War II changed everything. When Denmark was occupied by Nazi Germany, Iceland saw a chance. They took control of their foreign affairs, proving they could stand alone. Finally, on June 17, 1944, after a national vote, Iceland declared itself an independent republic. They picked that day to honor Jan Sigurdsson, the man who inspired their peaceful fight for freedom. Today, Iceland's a shining example of democracy, peace, and culture. Proof that sometimes the quietest struggles lead to the loudest victories. What does it take to turn centuries of struggle into a free nation? Ireland has the answer. For centuries, Ireland was under British rule, but Irish spirit never crushed. By the 1800s, nationalism was on fire, fueled by culture, pride, and a thirst for self-rule. Then, the Easter Rising of 1916 rocked Dublin. It failed, but it lit a fire across the country. Next up, the Irish War of Independence in 1919. The IRA faced off against British forces in a fierce fight for freedom. Victory? Sort of. In 1921, the Anglo-Irish Treaty created the Irish Free State. But, plot twist, Northern Ireland stayed with the UK. That split led to the brutal Irish Civil War, brother against brother. But Ireland didn't stop there. By 1937, a new constitution. By 1949, a full republic, no more British chains. Today, Ireland stands strong and proud. Its journey? A legend of courage, drama, and identity. And that story? Still shaping history. If you think Italy was always one big boot-shaped country, surprise! It used to be a tangled mess of mini-states, and everyone wanted a piece. In the early 1800s, Italy wasn't Italy, it was a patchwork of kingdoms, duchies, and territories, many ruled by outsiders, especially the powerful Austrian Empire. But the dream of unity sparked a fire. Enter the super squad: Mazzini, the brains; Cavour, the diplomat; Garibaldi, the fearless fighter; and King Victor Emmanuel II, the unifier. Together, they launched revolutions, made secret deals, and led daring campaigns. Piece by piece, the puzzle came together. In 1861, most of Italy finally united under King Victor Emmanuel II, but it wasn't over. Venice joined in 1866, and after a final standoff in 1870, Rome became the capital. Italy's independence wasn't just about borders, it was about people claiming their destiny. From chaos to unity, Italy became a nation, and history was changed forever. Stop thinking of Italy as always being Italy. For most of history, it was a mess of little states, and everyone wanted a slice. Here's how it finally came together. Back in the 1800s, the Italian peninsula was a tangled mess of kingdoms, duchies, and foreign rulers, especially the Austrians. Enter the dream team: Giuseppe Mazzini, the passionate revolutionary; Count Cavour, the master strategist; King Victor Emmanuel II, the face of unity; and Giuseppe Garibaldi, the action hero in a red shirt. They sparked revolutions, brokered deals, and fought battles to kick out the outsiders. In 1861, Victor Emmanuel II was crowned king, and most of Italy finally high-fived as one nation. But wait. It took a few more years to grab Venice in 1866, and finally, Rome in 1870, after French troops left town. So next time you enjoy spaghetti, remember, Italy's independence wasn't served on a silver platter. It was cooked up with courage, drama, and a whole lot of teamwork. Why did a tiny Baltic nation stand up to empires and win? Latvia's story is pure courage. Here's how they made history. November 18, 1918. Latvia declares independence as empires crumble. But freedom isn't just a speech, it's a battle. Latvian fighters face down Bolshevik and German armies in a brutal war. After 2 years of struggle, Latvia secured its place on the map. Recognition came in 1921. Latvia was free, at last. But peace was short-lived. In 1940, the Soviet Union invades. Then, Nazi Germany. Then, the Soviets again. Decades of occupation could not crush Latvia's spirit. May 4, 1990, Latvia restores its independence. By 1991, the world finally recognized a free Latvia once more. Today, Latvia stands proud. Democratic, independent, and strong. Remember this: Latvia's freedom wasn't given, it was earned, and that's something worth celebrating. You need to watch this if you think small countries have boring histories. Liechtenstein might be tiny, but its journey to independence is anything but dull. Here's how a postage stamp-sized country made it big. Back in 1719, the Holy Roman Emperor Charles VI said, "Let's unite Vaduz and Schellenberg." Boom! Now you're a principality. That's how Liechtenstein officially landed on the map. Fast forward to 1806, the Holy Roman Empire collapses, and Liechtenstein joins the Confederation of the Rhine. For the first time, they're truly calling their own shots. After Napoleon's defeat, they joined the German Confederation in 1815, but when that fizzles in 1866, Liechtenstein shrugs and stays totally independent. In 1921, they double down with a brand new constitution. Hello, democracy and sovereignty. Today, Liechtenstein is a global VIP, a member of the UN and Council of Europe, and living proof that you don't have to be big to make history. Not bad for a country you can cross in half an hour. What if I told you Lithuania pulled off not one but 2 epic escapes to freedom? February 16, 1918, a group called the Council of Lithuania signs the Act of Independence. Boom. Lithuania claims its freedom, right in the chaos of World War I. The Russian Empire is toast, Germany is on the ropes. But Lithuania, they're just getting started. But freedom wasn't a smooth ride. Right away, they're fighting Soviet Russia, Poland, and even their own political chaos. Still, Lithuania holds on, and becomes a full-fledged republic in the wild interwar years. Fast forward to 1940, bad news. The Soviets roll in, thanks to a shady deal called the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. Lithuania gets swallowed up for decades. But here's the kicker. March 11, 1990. Lithuania says we're out, and becomes the first Soviet republic to declare independence. By 1991, the world officially welcomes Lithuania back. Takeaway: never count out a nation with guts, and a knack for comebacks. This is why you need to know Luxembourg's story, because even the smallest countries can make history. Let's break down how Luxembourg went from pawn to powerhouse. Our story kicks off in 1815. After Napoleon's defeat, the Congress of Vienna creates the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg. But, plot twist. Luxembourg is ruled by the King of the Netherlands, and it's pulled into the German Confederation too. Talk about having too many bosses. Fast forward to 1839. The Treaty of London splits Luxembourg, Belgium grabs the West, and the East stays as the Grand Duchy. Finally, Luxembourg is recognized as a state, but it's still stuck with the Dutch king. Now here comes the game changer, 1867. Pause, emphasis. The Second Treaty of London declares Luxembourg neutral and fully sovereign. Fortress, gone. Foreign troops, out. And the big finish, 1890. Pause, emphasis. The Dutch king kicks the bucket, and Luxembourg crowns its own monarch for the first time. That's full independence, sealed and delivered. Luxembourg, tiny, tough, and totally free. Tired of the same old history lessons? Let's speedrun Malta's epic escape from Britain. Blink and you'll miss it. For over 150 years, Malta was a British colony. Think tea, red coats, and lots of ships. But after World War II, things started to change. In 1947, Malta scored its own local government. Still, Britain kept the big stuff, like defense and foreign policy. Fast forward to 1964. Boom, Malta holds a referendum, grabs a new constitution, and officially becomes independent on September 21st. The Queen was still the boss, but only on paper. Malta was now calling its own shots, but they didn't stop there. 10 years later, on December 13, 1974, Malta said goodbye to the Queen and hello to its own president. From colony to republic, Malta made it happen. So next time you see Malta on a map, remember, small island, big history. Hit follow for more wild history in 60 seconds.
Exposing the most peaceful breakup in Balkan history. No guns, no chaos, just ballots and hope. Let's see how Montenegro did it. Back in 2006, Montenegro was still tied to Serbia, part of a state that many felt didn't fit anymore. But instead of conflict, Montenegrins took a different path. A referendum. On May 21st, over half the country lined up to vote. The result? 55.5% chose independence, just enough to pass the European threshold and send a powerful message to the world. Days later, on June 3rd, Montenegro officially declared independence. No violence, just pride. Other countries quickly recognized the new nation, and by the end of June, Montenegro joined the United Nations. Since then, Montenegro's momentum hasn't slowed. They adopted the euro, joined NATO, and set their sights on EU membership. Tourism is booming, and hope is high. Montenegro's story proves that sometimes, the bravest move is a peaceful one. If you're a history buff, buckle up. This story's got war, rebellion, and a king losing his crown. Let's talk about how the Netherlands broke free from Spain. Picture this. It's the 1500s, and the Netherlands is stuck under Spanish rule. King Philip II is calling the shots, raising taxes, clamping down on religion, and basically acting like a royal buzzkill. People are fed up, especially the Protestants. Enter William of Orange, the OG freedom fighter. He leads the charge, and the Dutch provinces say, no more. In 1581, they dropped the Act of Abjuration, which basically says, if you're a terrible ruler, you're fired. But Spain doesn't give up easily. The war drags on for decades. Finally, in 1648, the world says, okay, you win. The Dutch Republic is born. Cue the Golden Age art, trade, and epic ships everywhere. So next time you think your breakup was rough, remember the Dutch. They did it for 80 years. Ever heard of a country that just refused to give up? Montenegro didn't just survive. It powered through centuries of invaders and came out on top. Montenegro is tiny, but don't let the size fool you. For centuries, while the Ottoman Empire gobbled up its neighbors, Montenegro held out. Why? Its mountains were the perfect hideout, and its people, fiercely independent. In 1878, the world finally took notice. Montenegro got official independence at the Congress of Berlin. Fast forward to 1910. Montenegro became a kingdom. More respect, more drama. But after World War I, they lost it all, absorbed into Yugoslavia. Ouch. Flash ahead again. Yugoslavia breaks up, but Montenegro hangs on in a union with Serbia. The big question. Should they go solo? In 2006, a razor-thin vote, just over 55%, said yes, independence at last. Today, Montenegro stands proud, Europe's youngest country with a history tougher than its mountains. Who knew small could be so mighty? This is gonna blow your mind. While most of Yugoslavia split apart in chaos, one country did it quietly. Here's how North Macedonia made history. Picture this, September 8, 1991. People in North Macedonia go to the polls and, by a huge majority, say yes to independence from Yugoslavia. No fighting, no war, just a peaceful vote. That's pretty rare, right? But the story doesn't stop there. After independence, North Macedonia hit a big roadblock: its name. Greece didn't like the name Macedonia, worried it hinted at claims over Greek land and history. So, for years the country had to use a temporary name at the United Nations, the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia. Catchy, huh? Fast forward to 2018. The Prespa Agreement finally solved the dispute, and the country became North Macedonia. With its new name, it joined NATO in 2020 and is now aiming for the European Union. Not bad for a country that started with a peaceful vote. I'm sure you've heard the news. Norway wasn't always the free nation we know today. Centuries of unions, power plays, and a whole lot of Nordic drama. Let's break it down, fast. For centuries, Norway was stuck in a union with Denmark. Think of it as a long, awkward group project, from 1380 to 1814. Copenhagen called the shots, while Norway took notes. But then, plot twist. Denmark lost the Napoleonic Wars, and suddenly Norway was handed over to Sweden by the Treaty of Kiel. Not cool, right? But Norway wasn't about to just accept it. In 1814, they wrote their own constitution. On May 17th, a date Norwegians still celebrate. Even under Swedish rule, Norway kept its parliament and laws. Over the next century, the call for true independence kept getting louder. And finally, boom, in 1905, after a peaceful referendum, Norway broke free. They even picked their own king, kicking off a new era as an independent constitutional monarchy. So, next time you see Norway on the map, remember, it's the result of centuries of hustle.
If Grit had a national flag, it would probably be red and white. Let me tell you why. For 123 years, Poland was like a story someone tried to erase. Russia, Prussia, and Austria divided it up, thinking, that's the end. But nope, Poles held onto their language, culture, and dreams like a dog with a bone. Secret schools, daring uprisings, and everyday resistance kept the spark alive. World War I changed the game. As the empires crumbled, Poles saw their shot, and took it. November 11, 1918, Poland was back on the map, not handed independence, but wrestled it back through grit, diplomacy, and a whole lot of stubborn hope. For Poland, independence isn't just a date, it's proof you can't erase a people's spirit. So next time you think freedom is a given, remember Poland, the comeback legend. Never take your freedom for granted.
If you think old means boring, Portugal is here to blow your mind. This tiny nation kicked off its independence party nearly 900 years ago. Let's find out how. Back in 1143, while most of Europe was still arguing over who got what castle, Portugal was busy declaring itself a brand new country. How? A bold knight named Afonso Henriques broke away from the Kingdom of Leon, basically telling them, thanks, but we'll do our own thing. The deal was sealed at the Treaty of Zamora, and later, the Pope himself said, yep, Portugal's legit. This was huge. It meant Portugal wasn't just another patch on a medieval quilt, it was its own nation, with its own rules. That early independence let Portugal invent its own identity. Fast forward a couple centuries, and these guys are ruling the seas, discovering new worlds, and making history books look like adventure novels. So next time you see Portugal on the map, remember, this little country has been rocking its independence longer than most kingdoms even lasted. Now, that's what I call legendary. Ever wondered how a small nation stood up to one of the biggest empires in history? Let's dive into Romania's epic fight for freedom. In the late 1800s, Romania was just one of many Balkan countries trapped under Ottoman control, but the Romanians had had enough. The dream for independence was burning bright. In 1877, Romania made a daring move. It declared independence and joined forces with Russia in the Russo-Turkish War. The fighting was tough and brutal, but the Romanians didn't back down. Their courage paid off. In 1878, at the Congress of Berlin, the world finally recognized Romania as a free, sovereign state. For the first time, Romania could shape its own destiny, set its own goals, and build its future. This was more than a political win. It was the start of modern Romania, uniting the people, fueling national pride, and proving they could stand tall on the world stage. Romania's bold break wasn't just about borders. It was about dignity, self-determination, and a brighter tomorrow. That's why 1877 still matters today. If you think Russia's always been its own boss, think again. For most of the last century, it was just one piece of a massive Soviet puzzle, but all that changed. Fast. For decades, Russia was the biggest player in the USSR, but not truly independent. Then, on June 12, 1990, Russia dropped a bombshell. the declaration of state sovereignty. It was like saying, from now on, our rules come first. The Soviet Union was falling apart, economy tanking, politics in chaos, republics wanting out. By December 1991, Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus signed the Belavasia Accords, pulling the plug on the USSR for good. Suddenly, Russia was on its own, officially independent, but with a mountain of challenges ahead. Boris Yeltsin became Russia's first president, and the country inherited the Soviet Union's seat at the UN Security Council, big shoes to fill. June 12th is now Russia Day, a holiday that sparks debates about what independence really means. So, here's the question. If your country became independent overnight, what would you want to change first? I bet you didn't know there's a country older than most castles, still standing strong in Italy. Meet San Marino, the ultimate hide-and-seek champion of history. Okay, quick history blast. Back in 301 AD, Saint Marinus, a stonemason on the run, climbed a mountain and started his own tiny republic. That bold move kicked off 1,700 years of independence. Surrounded by hungry empires, San Marino pulled off the ultimate ninja move: diplomacy and neutrality. While everyone else fought, San Marino just shrugged and said, "We'll pass, thanks." Even the Pope said, "Fine, you're your own boss," way back in 1291. In 1600, they wrote down their own rules, one of the oldest constitutions still working today. When Italy united, San Marino stayed chill and kept their flag flying. Even during 2 world wars, they stuck to their peaceful lane and survived. Today, San Marino is still free, still tiny, and still proud. Proof that you don't need to be big to stand tall. Next time someone says size matters, just drop the name San Marino. I bet you didn't know there's a country older than most castles, still standing strong in Italy. Meet San Marino, the ultimate hide-and-seek champion of history. Okay, quick history blast. Back in 301 AD, Saint Marinus, a stonemason on the run, climbed a mountain and started his own tiny republic. That bold move kicked off 1,700 years of independence. Surrounded by hungry empires, San Marino pulled off the ultimate ninja move: diplomacy and neutrality. While everyone else fought, San Marino just shrugged and said, "We'll pass, thanks." Even the Pope said, "Fine, you're your own boss," way back in 1291. In 1600, they wrote down their own rules, one of the oldest constitutions still working today. When Italy united, San Marino stayed chill and kept their flag flying. Even during 2 world wars, they stuck to their peaceful lane and survived. Today, San Marino is still free, still tiny, and still proud. Proof that you don't need to be big to stand tall. Next time someone says size matters, just drop the name San Marino. I bet you didn't know there's a country older than most castles, still standing strong in Italy. Meet San Marino, the ultimate hide-and-seek champion of history. Okay, quick history blast. Back in 301 AD, Saint Marinus, a stonemason on the run, climbed a mountain and started his own tiny republic. That bold move kicked off 1,700 years of independence. Surrounded by hungry empires, San Marino pulled off the ultimate ninja move: diplomacy and neutrality. While everyone else fought, San Marino just shrugged and said, "We'll pass, thanks." Even the Pope said, "Fine, you're your own boss," way back in 1291. In 1600, they wrote down their own rules, one of the oldest constitutions still working today. When Italy united, San Marino stayed chill and kept their flag flying. Even during 2 world wars, they stuck to their peaceful lane and survived. Today, San Marino is still free, still tiny, and still proud. Proof that you don't need to be big to stand tall. Next time someone says size matters, just drop the name San Marino. Why do history buffs love Serbia's independence story? Because it's packed with uprisings, big names, and dramatic victories. Let's dive into how Serbia became free, twice. For hundreds of years, Serbia lived under the shadow of the Ottoman Empire. But in 1804, enough was enough. Karađorđe Petrović led the first Serbian uprising, a bold move that lit the spark of revolution. The fight didn't stop there. In 1815, Miloš Obrenović took the torch and pushed even harder. These uprisings paid off. Serbia won autonomy, and by 1878, the world officially recognized its independence at the Congress of Berlin. Serbia stood tall as a new kingdom in Europe, but history never stands still. After World War I, Serbia joined a bigger union, Yugoslavia. Fast forward to 2006, Serbia finally reclaims its full independence. So next time you think of resilience, remember Serbia, a nation that fought, lost, and won its freedom, twice. Now that's a comeback story. Why do history buffs love Serbia's independence story? Because it's packed with uprisings, big names, and dramatic victories. Let's dive into how Serbia became free, twice. For hundreds of years, Serbia lived under the shadow of the Ottoman Empire. But in 1804, enough was enough. Karađorđe Petrović led the first Serbian uprising, a bold move that lit the spark of revolution. The fight didn't stop there. In 1815, Miloš Obrenović took the torch and pushed even harder. These uprisings paid off. Serbia won autonomy, and by 1878, the world officially recognized its independence at the Congress of Berlin. Serbia stood tall as a new kingdom in Europe, but history never stands still. After World War I, Serbia joined a bigger union, Yugoslavia. Fast forward to 2006, Serbia finally reclaims its full independence. So next time you think of resilience, remember Serbia, a nation that fought, lost, and won its freedom, twice. Now that's a comeback story. Stop picturing messy breakups. The split between Slovakia and the Czech Republic was smoother than your grandma's favorite velvet couch. Here's how Slovakia stepped into the world solo, no chaos needed. Imagine sharing a house with your siblings since 1918. Then, one morning, in 1993, you both agree, it's time for your own places. No fighting, just handshakes. That's how Czechoslovakia became two countries, and Slovakia got its independence on January 1st, 1993, in what's called the Velvet Divorce. Sure, it sounds easy, but Slovakia had a lot on its plate building new institutions, switching to a market economy, and figuring out its role in Europe. But instead of stumbling, Slovakia leveled up, strengthening democracy, joining NATO and the EU in 2004, and carving out a new identity. Today, Slovakia stands tall, proud of its language, history, and culture. The peaceful split is a big part of what makes Slovakia unique. A country that chose independence, embraced challenges, and became a star in Europe's lineup. Not bad for a velvet divorce, right? What if I told you a tiny country stared down a superpower and came out on top in less than 2 weeks? Here's how it happened. On June 25, 1991, Slovenia boldly declared independence from Yugoslavia. This wasn't a rash move. Over 88% of Slovenians had voted for it in a national referendum. Talk about having the people's backing. But freedom wasn't handed over. The Yugoslav army tried to force Slovenia back in line, sparking the 10-day war. Against all odds, Slovenia's makeshift defense held strong. The fighting was brief and compared to what came later in the Balkans, far less deadly. By July, the Brioni Agreement ended the conflict, and Slovenia's independence stuck. That's not just luck, it's strategy, unity, and pure determination. Fast forward, Slovenia built a democracy from scratch, joined NATO and the EU, and became a Central European success story. So next time you hear about the 10-day war, remember, sometimes the little guys really do win. That's Slovenia's epic 10-day miracle. Picture this. Napoleon's army marches in, confident, unstoppable, ready to crush Spain. But Spain had other plans. Alternate opening. This is why you never count out the underdog. Spain looked cornered, but what happened next flipped the script. Get ready for a wild ride through history. It's 1808. Napoleon forces Spain's king to quit and puts his own brother on the throne. The French think it's game over. Wrong. Ordinary Spaniards, farmers, shopkeepers, even priests, grab whatever they can and fight back, launching guerrilla warfare. They ambush, they sabotage, they vanish into the night. No fancy uniforms, just pure grit. Napoleon's troops, lost, frustrated, and outsmarted at every turn. Meanwhile, in Cadiz, Spanish leaders cook up a radical new constitution, one of Europe's most liberal. Rights, freedoms, and a taste of real independence. The war's brutal, the cost high. But Spain proves you don't need the biggest army, just the fiercest spirit. In the end, Napoleon's empire cracks, and Spain stands tall. Sometimes, history's greatest upsets are written by the bravest underdogs. I bet you didn't know Sweden's independence began with a massacre. Seriously, it's wild. Imagine a king so ruthless, he turns an entire country against him. Let's dive in. Picture this. It's the early 1500s. Sweden, Denmark, and Norway are stuck in the Kalmar Union, a royal group project totally ruled by Denmark. Swedes are fed up. But then, in 1520, things go off the rails. The Danish king, Christian II, throws a peace party in Stockholm, and then executes dozens of Swedish nobles. It's called the Stockholm Bloodbath. Yeah, not a fun after-party. Enter Gustav Vasa, a Swedish noble with a killer mustache and a score to settle. He rallies the country, leading a rebellion that chases the Danes out for good. By 1523, Gustav is crowned king, and Sweden's breakup is official. He doesn't stop there. He builds a new government, changes the religion, and transforms Sweden into a powerhouse. From bloodbath to kingdom, Sweden's wild breakup changed history, and the drama still echoes today. This isn't just history, it's a battle for survival. How far would you go for your country? Ukraine knows the answer. Ukraine's journey to independence didn't begin in 1991. For centuries, empires tried to erase its identity. Polish, Russian, Soviet. But the dream of freedom? It never died.
When the Soviet Union collapsed, Ukraine seized the moment. On August 24, 1991, they declared independence. Weeks later, over 90% voted yes in a nationwide referendum. That's not just democracy. That's a nation shouting, "We choose our own path." But independence isn't a one-time event. Economic crisis, political chaos, 2 revolutions in 20 years, millions in the streets, risking everything for dignity and democracy. Since 2014, Ukraine's faced war on its doorstep. But even under attack, Ukrainians stand tall, defending not just land, but their right to exist, to speak, to remember, to dream. So, what does independence really mean? For Ukraine, it's survival, pride, and hope. How much would you fight for your freedom? You won't find a UK Independence Day, because Britain never had a single dramatic break. Its history is more like a slow-cooked stew than a fireworks display. Picture this. Most countries celebrate independence from a colonial ruler. The UK, not so much. England started as a patchwork of kingdoms. Then the Normans showed up in 1066 and shook things up. Wales was added to the mix in the 1500s, but Scotland held out, keeping its own crown for centuries. Instead of declaring independence, the UK grew by merging kingdoms. Acts of Union in 1707 and 1801 stitched together England, Scotland, and Ireland. Later, most of Ireland went its own way, leaving us with today's United Kingdom. But here's the twist. The UK became a global empire, while its own independence evolved quietly at home. Think Magna Carta, English Civil War, and Glorious Revolution, building up Parliament's power, not tearing down foreign rule. And today, the real independence debates are inside the UK, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland. So Britain's independence isn't a single moment, it's an ongoing negotiation. History buffs, sometimes the journey is messier and way more interesting than the destination.